All right, going fireside chat on this one because I want to level with you guys. Today I want to talk about the question of whether Denver, Colorado is actually safe, whether it is a safe city, a safe place to live in. And this question came up for me recently because I saw that a website, US News and World Reports, which does sound a little spammy, but is actually a really good website for lots of different data. They rank Denver as the 15th most dangerous city in America. And what they say is that they're pulling the data directly from the FBI's data, which is extremely convoluted and hard to read, but you can look that up yourself as well. But it's not just US News and World Reports. It's a number of places online. Wallet Hub, for example, which again, Wallet Hub, safety, whatever, but they have a method that puts a whole bunch of different types of data, and they rank Denver out of 182 cities that they looked at in America, 169th safest. That's just right above New Orleans, right below Cleveland, and actually 6 spots below Baltimore, Maryland, which was the setting for the television show The Wire. So the data you can look up yourself. Like I said, that's all widely available, but what I want to do today is give some context to the data and just some very blunt, very honest information just based on my experience living in Denver for well over a decade, because you can go online and you can read all the numbers, but hard to know what it actually feels like to live here until you've lived here or you're talking with someone who has. And quickly, I want to address this because those of you who have been around the block, there are probably alarm bells ringing in your head. You're saying, Sam, you are a realtor. You're not allowed to talk about crime or safety, because this is what people say all the time. You can go online. There are a number of articles about it basically saying realtors can't talk about crime. They can't talk about is a neighborhood or an area safe. They can't talk about schools. And something that kind of gets repeated and repeated, but it's not totally true. And I think the reason it keeps getting repeated is because nobody actually looks into it. So what they're talking about is a NAR guideline, National Association of Realtors guideline, that basically advises realtors to stay away from discussing these things. And it all goes back to fair housing and the concept of steering. And NAR says, well, if you discuss these things, it could open you up to be accused of steering. They don't say you're not allowed to do it, but they say, you know, in the best interest of not getting in trouble, it's best to not. And somehow that morphed into you're not allowed to. But I'm going to read specifically from the National Association of Realtors statement on this here, okay, about steering in the Fair Housing Act. So they say steering occurs when an agent directs a buyer toward or away from a neighborhood because of the buyer's race, national origin, religion, or other characteristic protected under the Fair Housing Act. One way such directing can occur is when an agent expresses his or her own positive or negative view about communities or schools, the purpose of which is to direct a buyer of a particular identity towards or away from that community. In that instance, the agent may be stating a housing preference based on race, national origin, or another protected characteristic which violates the Fair Housing Act and the Realtors Code of Ethics. So a few things here. Number one, I'm not giving my opinions about specific neighborhoods or schools or anything like that. We're talking about Denver as a whole and how it relates to safety. And number two, yes, you should not steer people towards or away from a neighborhood with the intention of trying to get them to go there or not getting them to go there based on prejudice about a personal characteristic, race, national origin, any other protected class. Agreed. I don't want to do that. No interest in doing that. Shouldn't do that. Won't do that. Not doing that here. Is approaching this as if you asked me, Sam, is Denver a safe place to live? And giving you my honest thought as a resident. Okay, first of all, Denver as a city, do we have crime? And are there certain areas of the city that have more crime than others? Yes. Not breaking any news here. You can look up these stats. Also, we are a major city, semi-major city at the very least. Based on population, we are the 19th largest city in America. That's bigger than Las Vegas, bigger than Boston, bigger than a lot of different cities. And with a city of that size comes a larger population and more people living in close quarters. And with those things naturally becomes more crime than you're gonna get way out in the countryside. So is living in Denver more dangerous than that? Yes. You will be much safer living out in the middle of nowhere with no one around you. Will you be safer completely? Will you be safer from bears and coyotes? No. But you will be safer from violence and other sorts of crime, 100%. Again, this is common sense. I'm just sort of approaching the question like I would. But in terms of living in the city of Denver, or whether or not on the whole it feels unsafe, my answer to that is a resounding no. In the 13 or so years I've lived here, I could count on one hand and maybe not even need too many fingers the times where I felt purely because of where I am uncomfortable because it feels unsafe. And in any of those instances, I probably knowingly put myself there too. Yes, it would be amazing to be able to go anywhere you want and never feel unsafe whatsoever. Also, not a reality of life. But with that said, I have been all over this town. I have lived in numerous neighborhoods and some suburbs, and it is one of the safer places on the whole as far as cities go I have ever been. I am not an imposing person, and I feel comfortable going almost anywhere in this town, really at most any time. You have to be smart, and that's what I always tell my wife, my kids. Even in a safe place, it's important to be vigilant because you never know. Like I said, there's a lot of people living around here, and crazy Crazy things can happen in what should be the safest places on earth, and we see that all the time in the news, unfortunately. But the vast majority of Denver, I'd say 95+%, has always felt very comfortable to me and the folks I've been around to just exist. Are there places and times to avoid if you want to maximize your safety? Yes, late at night, things can get hairy. That's true in Denver. That's true everywhere. And are there areas that are seedy and seedier than others? Yes, that is true. I would venture to say that we have fewer seedy areas here in Denver than in many major cities I've been in, but we still have them. You can probably figure out where they are pretty easily. Some of them may exist along the, I don't know, largest, longest surface street in America, which I will not name because I don't want to get accused of telling people not to go there. I will say that a lot of the time, the seedy areas are the ones that are the most interesting, have some of the best places to dine, have a beverage. Not always, but sometimes. There's a balance there, and it's completely up to your personal level of comfort. But all I'm saying is I've had some great times on Colfax. What? Who? Moving on. Now, the other thing is we do have some post-pandemic challenges that a lot of other cities have too. Certainly nowhere to the level of like a Portland or Seattle or San Francisco, nowhere near that sort of level. I feel for those cities. But especially in terms of the epicenter of Denver and the areas near downtown, it hasn't rebounded quite as quickly as I thought it might. It's not bad. I was just downtown yesterday. I parked on the street and went and did my thing and then got my car and never really gave it a second thought. But it was a little dirtier than it used to be in 2018, 2019. And there are challenges. You'll see homeless encampments here and there. Again, it's not taking over downtown like a lot of people would say, but it's a reality. In my estimation, it's a temporary reality and it's a very difficult problem to fix, but it's a challenge that a lot of cities are going through right now. The other thing too is I'm talking about the city of Denver, but if you're at all concerned about your level of comfort living somewhere and you're just still not quite sure, but you want to be in the Denver area, the suburbs are a great option. Almost all the Denver suburbs are very green acres, very safe, and very maybe even boring to a certain level, which for some people, that's what they're looking for. So I would say that if you're concerned at all, there are plenty of fine suburbs here in the Denver metro where you get a lot of the great Denver things, but it's not as much city living. And finally, let me just say that the people that Denver, Colorado attracts are folks who enjoy being active, enjoy the outdoors, enjoy the temperate weather, and enjoy being close to the mountains. And those types of things, I find, bring a positive, nice to be around energy. So the people that Denver attracts typically are the people that aren't going to make you feel uncomfortable to be around. People who like to be active, people who like to do outdoorsy stuff. Those are people that, in my experience, are very nice, very positive, and I always feel safe around nice, positive people. But if you have any questions or want further clarification on any of this, just hit me up. My contact information is all over the place, like it always is. I love talking to people who reach out from YouTube. It's actually my favorite thing about doing this. And if you're curious about buying a house and where to buy a house and maybe where not to buy a house in Denver, I did videos on that as well, and you can check those out now. Otherwise, love you. Talk soon.